All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us in this third or fourth, I lose track of lose count, of our series, Thriving Student Services in a Virtual World. We're so pleased that many of the community colleges are stepping up to share their innovations that they have taking place as we try to weather the storm of COVID-19 and limited in-person instruction and student services in the fall and going forward until all of this is over. I'm Jake Farbman with the New Jersey Council of County Colleges Statewide Center for Student Success. So happy that you could all be with us this afternoon. So just a couple quick housekeeping things before we turn it over to our presenters. Number one, if you can, please enter your name, college, and email address in the chat. And what we'll do is we'll send this link out to you once it's available, once the recording is available, so that you can watch it again, or you can share it with colleagues who were not able to join us today. Number two, if you're not one of our presenters, if you could just mute your line, just so we don't have any interference. It's not that we don't want to talk with you directly. I'd love to spend the next hour talking to everybody, but we just can't. Number three, if you have questions throughout the presentation, you can save them to the end when we get to Q&A, or if you want to write it down so you have it, you can put your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to those when we get to the Q&A. So with all of that said, I want to thank Rowan College at Burlington County and Bergen Community College for stepping up to lead this discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Zanab at this point. So thank you all.
Actually, I'm going to start. This is Trisha. Hi, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Zanab and I are doing the best practices of virtual recruitment. And we know that this is a crazy time for recruitment, unprecedented times. And so we wanted to come together and talk to you about some of the things that our institutions are doing. And what we have found in talking to each other and preparing for this is that we're actually doing a lot of the same things, but in different ways. So we want to bring that information to you and kind of start a dialogue about what our institutions are doing so that we can better help each other recruit and make a great experience for the students that we're recruiting and bringing on campus. But we want to get started with a poll. So we want to ask the question, what does virtual recruitment mean to you? So you'll see the link below. If you want to start with a one-word answer, you can log in from your web browser, you can log in from your phone, and give us just one word to how you would describe these crazy times with virtual recruitment. We're going to give everyone a minute to do that, and then we're going to kind of see where everyone's at with that. So we'll give you guys just a minute to do that.
If you feel like there are multiple words that you feel or that it means to you, you can text or enter it in different lines so that the words will come up separately, but just put them in separately. Don't put them in as one line.
Give everyone a second to get in there to log in. So I think while people are typing, I will just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Trisha Giannini. I am one of the enrollment specialists at Bergen Community College, and I've been there in their office for about 5 years.
My name is Zainab Jenham. I am the Assistant Director for Outreach and Admissions, Partnerships and Special Populations. It's a mouthful, but I've been with RCBC for about 5 years. I've been in Outreach and Admissions and Recruitment for about 7. This is brand new to all of us in this way, so we are all learning as we go, and so we're hopeful that during this presentation, we can learn something, but also know that maybe we're not all crazy and we're doing something right as well. So we'll give you guys a couple of minutes to start adding those words in. And as you can see, the words are coming in about how we're all feeling about this or what it means to us.
Looks like challenging seems to be the overarching theme so far.
So yeah, as the words come in, and if the words are similar, the word gets bigger, so we can see what the most common theme definition of what it means to all of you. Everybody, another minute. Okay, so I think closing this out, it looks like the two biggest themes we can see here is challenging and new, which is very truthful. It looks like challenging is a little bit bigger than the new. And so we're hopeful that as we go through this presentation, maybe other words or your thought process of what it means, maybe it changes. Hopefully we don't make it more challenging for you after this presentation. We're hopeful that you're able to maybe have some creativity and more accessibility. Maybe you feel like it's a better way to do this at the end, or just newer ways to do this. So we're hopeful that this presentation gives everyone a way to gain information, but also provide information. So we will go back into the presentation.
Great. So I just have to say, I love the word creativity. I think that's a great way to kind of describe what's going on. We have to be creative and kind of innovative in what we're doing. So we're going to get started just to give you a little bit of information of who we are as institutions. At Bergen Community College, we are pretty north. We are about 10 miles outside of New York City. We have 13,000 students total, so we're a pretty large institution. And we have 3 campuses. We have over 500 international students on campus. So that's been a real interesting thing with everything going on this past week. And we have about 120 plus programs. So we actually, just to give you an idea, we went completely online for the summer. And we were actually a COVID testing center until about 2 weeks ago. And so we have decided as an institution to be 90% online for the fall semester. We will offer some classes like biology and health professions, but we've made it a mission to really offer things in a virtual way, whether it be our services or information sessions, and we'll go into all of that, but really try to connect with students even though they're not physically there. And so that's a little bit of information on who we are as an institution. Zainab, I'll turn it over to you.
So at Rowan College of Burlington County, we have about 8,000 or so, almost 9,000 students on campus. That is our total student body population. Our average age for our student is about 24 to 25. We offer over 12 degrees, 100% online. 6 of those are an additional 6 certificate programs, excuse me. Obviously with everything changing, you know, that may open doors for newer programs to be offered online. We have 3 different divisions offering coursework. We have over 40 countries represented in our international student population. So again, with everything going on, like Trisha said, that's been something that we've had to work through with some of our students. We have 5 locations where students can take classes. One of them is our main Mount Laurel campus, which was just newly renovated with the Student Success Center, and with, you know, new dining and new ways to study and the new library, a new Student Success Center where we as admissions, financial aid, registration advising are all in one spot. So we have a one-stop shop on the 2nd floor. We also have our Mount Holly Center, which hosts our culinary arts programs, our art programs, graphic design, things like that. And Willingboro does a lot of general education requirements. We offer classes on the joint base and as well as online. And now we'll go into a little bit about what we are doing both between Bergen and RCBC, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of ideas about what's been going on since March, some new things that we've been doing, some things that we've just converted, but it's a lot of collaboration in these events. So I'll let Trisha go over a little bit about that.
So both RCBC and Bergen are using WebEx for a lot of our information sessions, things of that nature. The idea of a virtual open house is interesting but daunting. RCBC did a spring open house. At Bergen, we're actually going to be doing an open house in about 2 weeks. That'll be all Zoom, all live. So really being able to bring open house to students at a time where I think a lot of students really are still in that decision-making phase, right? They're still trying to figure out where they're going, what they're doing. So we were able to put something together for the next 2 weeks. Both of us are actually doing general information sessions. So the interesting thing is a larger institution, we're actually doing more information sessions. We're doing about 4 a week with a much smaller targeted audience, whereas RCBC is doing an event once a month and they're getting a much larger audience. So really it's kind of looking at who your audience is and how you're tailoring those events, but really doing the same thing with both of those events. Major specific information sessions. So as most institutions probably know, health professions is a big one on campus. So providing Q&As and specific information sessions for them, as well as different departments on campus, to make sure that students are still connecting to faculty, to make sure that they're still being able to bridge those connections, even though they're not physically there. And then also utilizing registration and advising virtually. We are doing all of our registration and advising either through email, through phone, or through WebEx seminars. So students have the option to do group sessions. They also have the opportunity to do individual sessions. I think one of the things that I have found with especially our information sessions is that students still want that face-to-face connection, right? They don't, you know, they like the phone and they like email, but they want to see a person. So we've made it a real effort to make sure that these type of services are still able to connect students to staff, again, even though they're not physically there.
And a couple different things that RCBC is doing is that we're utilizing some of the things that we did on campus and transitioning them. One of them is our QList system. This is a system we've used on campus for the last year, and this allows for check-in services to see our student services. So to see admissions, to see advising, registration, the billing office, financial aid, career services. Students normally just walk to the front desk, check in, and then they get a text message when it's their turn. So they don't have to sit in a line. So basically it removes the lines of students that we get when they're trying to see us. And so we're moving this online. We started this week. So we're using virtual walk-in hours, virtual lines. They're checking in virtually. They're seeing as a pilot, just advising and just registration right now, because our main focus is right now is to get them to get situated for fall. So we just started this week. We're going to see how it goes as a pilot group. And if it's successful, we're going to add in the rest of the departments like financial aid, the admissions department, and so on and so forth. So we're trying to find different ways to reach these students because, like Trisha said, they still want that person. They still want to talk to somebody. We also are hosting a few FAFSA completion workshops virtually, and financial aid is also holding one-on-one appointments. So whether they have questions about their statuses or how it works, how financial aid works, maybe they need a one-on-one appointment to complete the FAFSA. So they're holding those. And something different that we are doing that is for first-time students only is they're called Bergen bundles. And it's the introduction to student orientation. So a student who has applied already, but they have not registered. And so they need assistance with getting themselves logged in. They need assistance with navigating our portals, making sure they have all the things in line to get themselves ready for the first day of school. So those are some of the new things that we're doing or transitioning from online to, on campus to virtual. And some of the different things that we are really doing, focusing on social media. We know that the younger demographic and parents are on Facebook or Instagram, depending on your preference. But a couple of things that we're doing differently is Facebook town halls and Facebook live Q&As. and they're a little bit different. So a town hall has a specific focus, a theme, and usually it's hosted by our president with guest speakers. So they're very structured, and they're offered maybe once a month, maybe every couple weeks, but they're advertised for very specific topics of conversation. Our admissions live Q&As, the admissions office runs those. And so basically we're on Facebook for a specific time, maybe every other week, once a week, and it's just open forum. So anybody can ask any question, and it allows our financial aid office to be there and answer questions, maybe eliminating the back and forth with the email and some of the phones and voicemails, but just trying to get those answers out there, because if one person has a question, we know mostly that everybody has that question. Our marketing teams are also utilizing Facebook and Instagram for ads, and something new, and we've seen these before, but then something new that we're doing with Instagram is a student takeover. So our marketing department has reached out to our student leaders, involved students, student workers, different types of students, returning adults, traditional student age, and allowing them to take over our RCBC Instagram page to see a day in the life, if anybody has questions about going to school, what it's like from the student perspective. So we're trying to make sure that our students are seeing our students be successful. And there are questions that sometimes, and we know this, that they don't want to ask us or talk about. They want to talk to an actual student. So as much as we can advertise our institutions, we can't speak from the student's perspective. So this is something that we're trying to utilize and see, and it's been successful. You know, our students like being on Facebook and like being on Instagram, so it's pretty interactive in that way. Oh, I'm still going. Okay. If I'm talking too much, please say something. So another thing that we are utilizing and, you know, maybe amping up more than we normally would is our communication plans. This is a time where we cannot present in person. You know, we can't go to those tabling events. We can't go to the high schools. So how are we reaching these students? How are we talking to them in a way that's meaningful and that they're actually going to read these emails? So we need to make them a little bit more interactive. So both institutions are utilizing their CRM systems a little bit more aggressively than we normally would, both using email and text campaigns with call to action. So RCBC is using Fire Engine Red and Bergen is using Hobson's. Now, I will say that we've noticed a change by being more aggressive in this way, having the emails be a little bit more pretty and visually appealing and shorter too, because, you know, as we know, students are not reading, they're reading bullets and tasks. So making sure that all of these emails and texts are being action oriented. What is the next step? And not putting everything in one email and emailing them in a progressive way, but not in a way that they don't want to talk to us anymore. We are also using, like I said, our marketing team to help promote our events that we're doing, sending out the RSVP links, helping us navigate this strange situation that we're all in. And then something that our advising and student retention teams are using is something called a Viso. This is a system that is through our student portal, and it is a way for our advisors to email and text our current students, our student accounts office, to say, don't forget your student deadline, don't forget to pay your bill. Financial aid can use this, but this is more for our returning students to know that make sure you're coming back, make sure that you're continuing to enroll in this. We know uncertain time, but we're here, we're trying to help you. We wanna make sure that you know the resources are still here, regardless if you're on campus or not.
So, and one of the things that we found really helpful at Bergen is our counselor email to students. It sounds so silly, but just sending an email to students after they apply, 2 days after they apply, saying, we're your counselor, we're here for you, let us know if you have questions. The amount of response that we get back from those emails is actually quite surprising. Students want to have that point of contact. They want to have someone that they know is their personal counselor to reach out to them to answer their questions, whatever those questions may be about the enrollment process. And so I think one of the things that virtual recruitment really means to me is figuring out students, they all have different ways of wanting to connect with us, right? So whether that's email, whether that's text, whether that's phone, and figuring out how we can best serve them. At Bergen, we've actually been pretty aggressive with our outbound calling. We actually are utilizing students to call students, prospective students, once they've applied. So students are getting an email from us, they're getting a phone call from us. And to Zainab's point, they love hearing from a student. They love that student perspective. So they're able to ask them questions about the process, that they feel they're getting that student perspective, and it's really, really helpful. So if you're able to utilize student workers, I know that it's summer and that not everyone has the access to do that, but still having those students be able to call is super, super helpful. Interestingly enough, we're both actually doing a message from our president to our graduating seniors. We've actually, at Bergen, we've gotten a list of all the Bergen County graduates in the county. We've had our president write a letter, so we're actually doing a hard copy letter. I know that rcbc is doing an email. It's kind of a matter of, again, a different way to connect to students, to kind of say, hey, congratulations. To reach out to those students who they maybe wouldn't have considered community college. Maybe they were thinking about a four-year school. But I think a lot of students are still in that phase of, am I going away? Am I not going away? What's dorming going to be like? And so trying to capture those students and say, your community college has a lot of opportunity outside of just being super affordable, right? There's a lot of transfer opportunities. There's a lot of things that we can kind of give to you if you would consider us. And having that come from the president really kind of gives just another layer of, you know, another dynamic layer. So that's something that we're both doing, and I think has actually been super helpful. The nice thing about that as well is I think a lot of students, a lot of us think that we're reaching out to seniors, but forget that seniors have parents and they have siblings and they have a lot of other people. So sending that stuff to the house, maybe outside of just an email or text, someone else may look at that and say, oh, well, my son or daughter may not go, but I want to go back to school. So trying to connect to more than just that one, to that one student. So I think one of the things that I've been really interested in is recruiting this fall. I've been doing admissions for quite a long time, and the thought of recruitment without being at a college fair on the road is kind of a crazy thought process. And I think we're all in that same space. So I know that a lot of high schools are still in that phase of trying to figure out what they're doing, trying to figure out what they're going to be wanting from us as college representatives. So both at Bergen and RCBC, we're doing high school counselor check-ins. So we've actually sent an email out to all of our counselors with a survey and asked them, what are you looking for? What do you think you may be looking for? And the answer of I don't know is absolutely okay. We want to be able to offer to their students, whether it's virtual information sessions, individual or group sessions. I know at Bergen, we are still determining whether or not we will be traveling for fall, whether we'll be traveling for fall. I know that since we're primarily online, the idea is that we most likely won't be on the road. So we want to be able to compensate for that. But we want the counselors to know that we're thinking of them. So we're actually doing emails to our high school counselors on a pretty bi-weekly basis to let them keep updated of what we have going on at the community college so that they know what we're doing. Virtual college fairs, I think they're a great opportunity. I think what's really interesting is some have the philosophy of it's a college fair, so do it. And I think there's something to be said about looking at the different fairs that are out there and finding ones that are going to be a good fit for you and your institution. I know that I participated in a StriveScan event probably about 2 months ago that was super helpful. I have seen that there's a lot of groups coming up, new organizations that are charging a lot of money, and they're looking to do virtual college fairs. And I just caution reps to be proactive in research and see who you're kind of investing in and making sure that it's the right fit for you as an institution, so that you're kind of getting the best bang for your buck, so to speak. Be flexible. I think this is something that we can all kind of take to heart. I think this time is a balancing act. And I think something that may have worked 2 weeks ago may not work next week. And so that's why I love the word of be creative, because I think this is when we really have to be creative and lean on each other and kind of use what other schools are doing, because I think what's going on now may look completely different 2 months from now. And then lastly, I think setting boundaries is something that we've actually really tried to work on through our office. The idea of working and living at home can be super stressful. And I think in the positions that we're in, we are constantly dealing with the public, and we're constantly dealing with students and parents, and that can be super, super stressful. So knowing when to set your boundaries and taking the time for you is going to make you a better recruiter and is going to make you better for your students and your job. And I think what I've learned about a lot of people in this profession is we want to go, and we want to help everyone. And I think we need to make sure that we recharge our own batteries as well. I think it's super important. So I think Zainab is going to go to the next slide. And we kind of want to make this a really open discussion. We kind of want to talk to other schools. I know that there were a couple of questions in the chat, so we can certainly talk about those. But I think one of the things that we thought was really interesting is kind of looking at what are the challenges that schools are facing, what are some of the successes that you're doing, and kind of how we can learn from each other. I think Zainab and I both noticed that even though her information sessions are quite large and mine are quite small, our show rate is still 50% across the board. Is that something you're seeing as an institution? And what kind of things are you looking for more information on?
As well as if your events are getting more students, right? So if you're yielding 75% of those RSVPs, like what are you doing differently? Are the events different? Are they focused differently? Because we just want to learn from each other.
Okay, folks, feel free to unmute and jump in.
This is Danielle from RCBC. I was gonna unmute to actually answer the question that Lisa had about getting a list of graduating seniors. So one of the things we just did is we just partner with College Board Search. And so with College Board, they do it for community college. It's about $1,900 for the actual agreement. But you can buy inquiries as far as where you're saying where you can get a list or purchase list at a very nominal cost. So, and they're already certified, you can recruit them accordingly. But basically you can get lists of PSAT, SAT, and AP takers from College Board. And so for all of us in New Jersey, we know we are heavy SAT, proponents in the state. So I know as far as from my research, I find that's a better conversion for us than it is for us on ACT. And then we also get inquiries from Hobson through Naviance. And so we get those on a weekly basis. And those are, kind of hot inquiries from us for us. So that way we can kind of convert those because they're students right in our backyard who are putting us on their profiles. And I know from all of our schools, they really push and use Naviance very heavily in Burlington County and the surrounding schools around Burlington County. So those are just some things that for us that we're, trying to do.
Thank you, Danielle.
Another question in the chat from Maureen. Aviso, is that an Illusion product?
I don't think so. Danielle might be able to answer this better. The retention team uses it more than the admissions team uses it. So it's more like advising for students who are currently in, but Danielle can answer to it a little bit better than that.
It is not an Ellucian product. So it is if you are a college school and you use the Recruit Advise, I think that's the right name of it. It is essentially that kind of tool or function, but it's not a Ellucian product. But we do have it work with colleague through like a FTP and all of that, or API process. So we do use it very heavily, and we send out a lot of text messages to students through it, even as simple as like today, we were talking about, hey, we have a certain amount of students that could get dropped on our daily drop. Can we send a text message? Or students that were dropped, can we send a text like, hey, let us help you get your classes back? So we use it in a variation of ways to be able to outreach to targeted groups, aside from our CRM. And we try to be specific that at Aviso we use for current students, and then our CRM we use for incoming students, new or potential. And that way, if we use the two separately, we really can kind of get a better kind of yield on the two products.
Thank you.
Thank you. So folks, what are your schools doing? To Zainab and Trish's question earlier, I find it hard to believe that schools aren't doing anything. Or are we all just a bit camera shy this afternoon?
Further challenges, maybe like maybe it's not what you're doing because you're doing what we're doing, but are there different challenges you're seeing? Are you having different yields of attendance rates? Because that would be interesting to the group of what you're doing differently to get those yields.
So I can speak for Bergen. I think one of the challenges that we were having, especially about a month ago, was testing. I know Zainab and I talked about this, was the remote testing is a new thing for Bergen. Before COVID, we worked on a walk-in basis. So students didn't have to make appointments, they could walk in, and testing was always one of those offices that was super busy. And then once we decided to go remote, students were really having a hard time scheduling appointments and you know, being connected. One of the things that we have instituted is we're doing text messages to set appointments. We're utilizing text messages to kind of confirm with students, because I think that's probably the part of the pipeline that where students get most congested. I think Zainab had said kind of a very similar thing. And so I think it's really important to make sure through admissions, because we're the front line of the school, right, is making sure that all those pipelines are clear for students, so that they can get through that process as seamless as possible.
And at RCBC, in connection with testing, we're also doing multiple measures instead of just basing it off of an entrance exam, because we can't have the students on campus taking that exam. So what other resources can we use that we already know exist? And obviously we use the SAT, ACT, but PARC scores, but also, you know, looking at their high school GPAs, what have they taken in high school, trying to look at the student more holistically versus just a test score to get them placed appropriately, getting them the resources they need to get that. But it's very similar to Tricia saying that the testing is the most difficult part so far that we've had to be able to convert from on campus to online.
I have something to share with everybody. Some of you have been on some of these meetings with me in the past may have heard this already. You might have heard it from your president. I shared it with the presidents early on in the COVID, and I don't think it's too late to implement such a thing if you and your colleagues at the college and the president and the administrators all think this is a good idea. Early on in this, Virginia's community colleges, and I don't know the specifics as to whether the letter went out to each student from the college president or it went from Glenn Dubois, the chancellor of Virginia's community colleges. Different structure there, of course, in Virginia. But Virginia sent a letter to every graduating high school student saying, congratulations, you're accepted to your local community college. So I don't know if any of you've thought of such a strategy or if you've employed that strategy, but I just wanted to put that on the table because in some of these other meetings we've had, a lot of our colleagues are talking about, you know, they're concerned that they're going to have enough person power to onboard students the last week of August because so many students are waiting to find out, you know, what's their college going to do. And, you know, in some cases it's, well, why am I going to pay, you know, triple to go to the four-year school or quadruple to go out of state if I can do remote at my local community college for, you know, a more affordable price to me and to my family.
So we can always look at the chat too. We do have another question that maybe we will get some more responses to, but we want to know, how can we collaborate more internally or externally? So whether that means we collaborate with more of these types of sessions with other community colleges, but also what are you doing internally to making sure that we are working together as an institution? Because a lot of the time it always seems to say, well, what's admissions doing? But really admissions and recruitment is an institutional-wide initiative. So we want to make sure that what are we doing? How can we collaborate differently, better? I know at RCBC, for example, our directors get together, you know, once every other week, and they talk about, all right, what's coming up? What do you need from us? what resource do we need? Do we need to move staff around to help? Maybe, you know, you have some extra part-time staff in one area that's really not being utilized. Can admissions use them? Can advising use them? You know, how can we work better together and not work harder, you know, when we're all trying to do the same thing? I know our entire leadership staff, we all get together once a week, just a check-in, just to make sure we're okay. And maybe it's more about just, how are your staff doing? What is their home life? You know, and sometimes a lot of it is, well, it's harder for some. They have to wait until, you know, whatever's happening at home to calm down. It's just, everyone has different lives and you're trying to balance all that. So how can we collaborate to making sure that the common goal is recruitment, enrollment, getting these students started to go to school, making sure these students are having the resources to be successful. So what are some of the ways that we can collaborate, both, you know, with other institutions, but also what are you guys doing internally? Maybe different or the same?
So Beatrice is eager to jump in, but her microphone is giving her some problems. So here's what she's sharing with us via this chat. Here's what we're doing in Union County, countywide. We sent a letter from the president to all parents of seniors in Union County, telling them about the benefits of attending Union County College first, such as the cost, money, transfer, the safety, and it being close to home.
I think a lot of what our open house is geared towards in August, it's a nice collaboration of our STEM department and admissions, because we have some great opportunities for students in regards to our STEM programs. And I think one of the things that our STEM department has really focused on, and we really want to tack into, is that there's so much opportunity at the community colleges, right? And I think it's really, and when I present to students twice a week, the thing that I always say is, there's a huge stigma around us. And I think we're all kind of aware of that, but I think it's breaking that barrier, especially with those students who would never have considered the community college in the first place. And so I think really highlighting for those students that would have said, I'm never going to community college, and then seeing all that you have to offer as an institution, I think really highlighting those things, whether that be through an information session, through a postcard, through you know, Facebook, Instagram, social media. I think that's really important because students forget that there are so much opportunity. Whether you have an institution, I know at Bergen, we have amazing honors programs and PTK, Jack Kent Cook Scholars. And so when students hear that, it makes their ears go up a little bit. And so I think highlighting those things is something that at Bergen we've really taken to task, because we think so many students just don't recognize that. They only see it as, it's the community college, and they forget that we're so much more than that. And I think one of the things that I've always loved about being at Bergen is that as a community college, we really do want to work together. I think a lot of the community colleges really understand that we're not against each other, but for each other. And I think that we really just need to work that way, because I think there's a lot of benefit in that.
Amen. Also from Beatrice at Union, she's separating her file by school, and seniors are also getting a postcard from President McMenamin saying congratulations on graduating, and come here first, come to Union County College first. And it's got a picture of the student's high school there on the front of the postcard. So it's a personalized outreach approach.
Yeah, I think we see a lot of that with our different campaigns that we're doing, specifically with the varying demographics, because what a student who, you know, we have a lot of returning adult students or students that start with career credentials or non-credit certificates first. So we send something to them because their needs are different. Their questions are different. So their communication plan is different. And so we talk to them in a different way. We give them different action steps to do. And that's going to be a different conversation than with our high school seniors, you know? So we had an event that was specific for high school seniors that were graduating, specifically just for you to register, just you. We divided out by high school, so each high school got their own special day. But, you know, I think a lot of it is there's a lot of distraction. It's very easy now to say, I will do this later, close the computer and walk away. versus, you know, when we used to do things on campus and bus the students in and get them here. You know, once you're on campus, we have you, you know, you can't really go anywhere, but there's a lot of external distractions that is gravitating these students in different directions. So it's very difficult for them to make a decision, but how can we keep them engaged, and how can we collaborate, you know, whether that be with the high schools or with the parents. We are doing parent information sessions as well. So those types of things we need to get to the students to make them understand that this is different times. And so their plans might be changing and they might be upset about that. And so they're trying not to make a decision because they don't want it to be real yet. I'd just be interested to see if you guys are using different internal partners. Are you working with financial aid differently now? Are you working with your advising and registration teams differently now when you're recruiting?
We also have from Beatrice that to your point earlier about social media, scheduling appointments from Facebook ads, and unions had 70 so far. About half are students that they weren't initially recruiting. So that's showing some positive uptick there as well.
You know, our appointments, you know, for our admissions counselors, they are back to back all day long. And so that has been great because to Trisha's point earlier, they want that one-on-one. You know, as much as they can just text somebody, or, you know, we think that especially the younger generation, they don't want to talk to anybody. They want confirmation of what they're thinking or feeling. So we're getting so many appointment requests, and there's only so much time in the day, but we fit them all in. We try to get them in. And, you know, if we need assistance with that, we are, you know, getting assistance from other departments to help with our emails and our phones and our voicemails, to making sure that we're giving students as much attention and from all avenues as possible.
I think what's hard right now, and I don't know about other institutions, but students not being able to get on campus is a big deal. And I know that I'm still getting requests for campus tours that I have to say, unfortunately, they're on hold indefinitely. And so I think that's why that face-to-face is even that much more important. So whether you're doing individual appointments or a big group Zoom or WebEx call, they need to know that there is someone at that campus, whether they're physically there or they're a part of the staff. I think it's even more so important. You know, I know at Bergen we have a virtual interactive map on campus, which is a small piece of, you know, a student wanting to visit, but at least they can see what we offer. And I think that's important because I think, again, I'm going to go back to that stigma. Students think community colleges, you know, the campuses aren't nice and there's not a lot to see. And we want them to see all that we have to offer. And they, as much as they know they're not going to be on campus in the capacity they would like, they want to still feel connected. And so it's our job to really make them feel that in any way that we can.
So I know we're getting close on time as well.
I do just see there was a question in the chat. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Here we go. Just thought we can ask questions.
So someone's asking, I think, how we track virtual events. We do all of ours through our CRM. So we do through Hobson's. We actually use WebEx for information sessions, but there is a feature in our CRM where we have an RSVP site set up. They can pick which event they want to sign up for. They get automated registration emails, and then we actually go in and mark them attended, not attended, and they'll get follow-up emails accordingly. So if they don't attend, we encourage them to RSVP to another event.
Very similar. Our CRM has a forms events manager area to it. So as a student chooses to register for an event, they get an automatic email confirmation or saying that they're going to get a confirmation depending on the type of event. And then the CRM will also send out reminders to RSVP, and also the day before, day of, this is your link to get to the WebEx, you know, helpful tips, like before you log in, make sure you're on Chrome or whatever service is, you know, being utilized at that point that's a little bit more friendly to the services. Make sure maybe they need their ID number for that event. Making sure whatever they need, they have ready to go so it's a successful event. And then they also get follow-up. So yeah, we're very aggressive with that. Also the text messaging, don't forget, you know, can't wait to see you, those types of things. But we are definitely utilizing our CRMs more aggressively through the virtual formats.
Any other questions or anything anyone would like to share before we call this a session?
So Trisha and I also provided our contact information in case, you know, because normally I think this is similar to students as well. You leave the presentation and now you have questions. So this is our contact information. You can always ask us questions, email us about what we're doing, or just, you know, any suggestions or different things that you guys are doing. We'd love to hear from you. But is our contact information if you guys need anything.
Tricia, Zanab, thank you so much for sharing today. Thank you all for being on the line and for taking time from your busy schedules to join us today. We'll be doing this again next week, focused on parent and family outreach strategies. And the following week, we're going to be talking about mental health services in a virtual environment. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the day and have a great weekend. We'll see you again next time. And thanks again to our presenters.
Thank you.
Thank you.